All right, guys, a couple of off-topic things. First of all, as you can see here, so yesterday I spent maybe a couple of hours making the app available more or less for iPhone devices and iPads and all the iOS ecosystem, yeah? And it was really well. This is a simulator, but I'm really happy because once again, it took me maybe 2 or 3 hours to migrate from Android to iOS. Using a native language will have implied I will have required probably 2 years to do the same thing. 2 years versus 2 hours. So next time someone tells you I want to build a native app for iOS, remember that moment. Yeah? Cool, it will be hopefully, I mean, this is just test, yeah? There is still some minor things, some resolution issues, things like that, but hopefully it will be available on the store within the next couple of months. Anyway, so apart from that, let me show you something cool I found out this morning on the Jubilee line. So, look, optional chaining is landing in Chrome 80. What the hell that means? Look, actually, let me present you the problem. This is something happening today, literally today. This is something that theoretically speaking didn't work yesterday, but theoretically speaking it will work today, something like that. Because that new feature is being deployed to Chrome 80. Today, Chrome is deploying Chrome 80. So, let's do a test. This is completely off topic, but that's pretty cool because that's a new feature of JavaScript. So if I create a new snippet, imagine that I got, so I have something like, let me close a couple of things here. So I got a variable, user, yes sir. So I got a variable called user. I'm just making that up. I didn't prepare that. Yeah. Once again, I found that this morning on the Jubilee line. So, and then that object user has a list of scores, which is an array. But then for each score, we go total, and then average. That's a bit stupid, but hopefully you will see my point in a minute. So how can we get so the problem of the exercise, I want to have a function called get total score on second attempt, something like that. So essentially, I want to return the number 15 because that's the total score of the second element of the array. So can anybody tell me how can I do that? Return what? User dot scores brackets 1 dot total. All right, I like that. Yeah, I'm not against that. I'm not against that. So let's try that. Yeah, it works. Yeah, that's cool. I mean, that's okay if you have full control on the data model. But what happens if, in some circumstances, some users may have participated only once at Codery? Will that work? What will that return? Are you sure? Are you sure it's a very British way of telling you you are wrong like hell? Why are you wrong? What is user dot, say it again, Russell? So what is user dot scores square bracket 1 returning? What is the second?
So return an error because you can't do total of undefined.
Correct. That will eventually return an error. Why? How many scores do we got? Only one. Yeah. The array has a single element. However, if we try to access the second one, the highlighted bit that returns undefined because there is nothing on the second position of the array. So what happens when you do undefined dot something?
Can't access total of.
Correct. Throws an error. Yeah. So well, we can playing with the Boolean algebra we've been covering in the I think 1 week ago. Technically speaking, we could do that. Yeah? We say, hey, if this is truthy, you remember truthy and falsy. If this is truthy, then evaluate the next bit. If this is falsy, yeah, that will return undefined, of course, but at least it won't throw an error. Yeah, because we don't got that information. But to make the problem even worse, what happened if, I'll tell you something, what happened if we got nothing? What will that return? Correct. As Anita said, even though no one got the answer, and unfortunately she didn't got the job, because the person in charge of deciding, like the Roman Empire, whether she gets hired or not, didn't get the answer, right? So Anita, could you please repeat your answer for the employers?
Scores is not an array.
That's correct. We think that user.scores is an array, but there is nothing. I mean, that's the same as of literally doing this, yeah? So that throws an error. Cannot read property one of undefined. I don't get anything on scores, yeah? It's an error. So, but again, following the same criteria, I can do that. If I got the user, and I got user.scores, yeah? Or actually, yeah? So if user.scores, if I got the scores, and I got one element, and I got the total, then, yeah. So you see now, obviously, it doesn't return anything, but once again, it doesn't throw any error. So I hope you can see that the more complex your data model is, the more checks we need to run to prevent errors. Yeah? If I got that, and then I got that, and then I got that, and then I got that, yeah? If else, if else, if else, if else. Obviously, I could increase the complexity of that expression easily. Yeah? But I hope for now you can see the problem. And that's the way JavaScript has been working since 1995 until today. I mean, I never tried that, it may not work, but in JavaScript, there is a new super cool feature called optional chaining. Optional chaining means, let's get rid of all these checks. That's what they want, right? I just want to get the total. So let's do that, and now look at how cool this syntax is. You see the question mark? Means, hey, if I got user, and I got user.scores, and I got user.scores 1, it's something like that. I mean, that may not be correct. I just found that this morning before the first coffee of the day. But the new syntax looks something like that. Yeah? This doesn't work because I hope so. So if I go to Chrome, about Google Chrome, so let's play the gamble, guys. Should we update the browser and see if it works? Cool, so Google Chrome is reopening. And if my theory, actually, did they save the snippet? Or I have to rewrite it everything? That was a bit stupid, yeah? So now at least I got version 80, yeah? That's cool, that's a good thing. So let me open DevTools again and see if the snippet now works. So sources, I definitely have version 80 and ho. Not throwing any error anymore, guys. That's super cool. That's the best thing I've seen in my life, yeah? So now, if my theory is correct, I mean, that should return undefined, but that shouldn't throw any error. Oh, what the hell? Unexpected token. I wasn't expecting that. What's wrong with this semi? Oh, all right. So maybe the syntax is not accurate. Let me read that. So if I got the user, then scores, maybe that thingy is wrong.
Maybe one more question mark.
Where? After total? You think so? No. That's a bit weird. Yeah, I mean, let me simplify the example. Maybe I did something wrong here. Something like that. Oh, what's wrong, guys? Why I cannot add a semicolon? Compile failure, unexpected token. So this is still not working. Oh, wait a minute. What's wrong now, guys? Yeah, then what?
We have not defined the.
I don't care. What's wrong, guys? Why I cannot return a user? What the hell? Let me close that tab. I'm completely lost at the moment. So let me open a new snippets. New snippet. I mean, that's correct, right? So let's start simple, right? So user.scores, that's what they try to do, right? Okay, and what if I do scores 1? Something like that? No, I cannot that right. So afterwards maybe? No? Scores 1 dot total. Actually, okay, to simplify the problem, let's just talk about objects. Imagine that we got user, name, and first. So I want to do name, first, Peter. Yeah? So definitely, I want to do user.name.first. That works. But if I don't get the name, that will throw an error because I cannot access first of undefined. So that will throw an error. Yes. Cannot read property first of undefined. But now the question is, can I do that? So that's equivalent to writing user.name and user.name.first. That's equivalent. So would that work? Oh, hello Chrome. What's that? Let me try again. Yeah, it works. So it definitely works. So what happened then if I do .first title? That will throw an error because I don't have first, so first.title will throw an error. No, sorry, it's stopping here. Yes. But if I do .name, so that should throw an error if I'm right. Here you go, it throws an error. Cannot read property title of undefined. However, how can we get rid of the problem? That's correct, Alex. Question mark after first. So in theory, boom, that's great. Also works with arrays apparently. So if I got an array of fruits, apple, banana. No, that's not what I wanted to do. So each fruit is an object actually. Yeah. So got name apple and name banana. Yeah. So definitely I can do fruits 0, fruits 1. No, sorry, fruit 0.name. What should that return? Apple. Correct. But what if in reality I get no elements on the array? What will that return? Error. That's correct, because fruits of 0 is undefined. Undefined.name throws an error. But now, can I do that? That's interesting. It looks like Google Chrome supports that feature on objects, but not with arrays. So maybe the support is not complete. Maybe. I mean, I'm just, thinking of different possibilities. Yeah? So that's essentially the algorithm. You see, this is what I'm trying to do. You see, that's the same problem. So this guy is trying to fetch some data from an external API, and then he wants to check whether we got articles of 0, and then a property called next, and a property called title inside of it. So he's definitely following that pattern. It looks like Google Chrome is not supporting array-based optional strategy yet. Looks like. I mean, guys, what's my point here? So that's a super cool feature. However, you should be careful because that is still experimental. Yeah? It's super cool. It's one of the best things I've done in my life. I've seen in my life, but it's still experimental. Yeah, it looks like that eventually. You see, it works with objects, with arrays, and with functions somehow. Yeah? So yeah, the thing is, Google Chrome is in theory supporting that from version 80, but that's not a standard. That won't work, for instance, on Firefox. Yeah. But now the question is, will that be ever added to the JavaScript standard? Well, you know the TC39. So that's the organization that looks after JavaScript standard. So now this is on stage number 4. Yes, so stage 4 means it's been officially approved. So it's not officially part of the standard because you know JavaScript releases a new version every year. And that one apparently got approved 1 month ago. Because JavaScript releases a new version every year, probably by summer, end of July. That means starting from August 2020, officially speaking, you'll be able to use that. So you may be thinking, why the hell is this guy talking about this weird experimental stuff? Because once again, you are in a fantastic position to be ahead of your senior colleagues. I just came across that by accident this morning. But the thing is, easily you may be in a job interview with me in a company and I may have never heard about that optional chaining. What the hell is that? And you will impress me a lot. You will impress me a lot because that will prove that you really know the trends. You really know what's going on today. Yeah. In the long term, you will find very difficult to catch up with the new stuff every day because this changes so quickly that it's impossible to know everything. Yeah, it's impossible. Today, new stuff is happening, and I don't know that. Yeah, so take that as a weapon, yeah, to impress a potential employer, to prove that you know things that are happening today. Cool. So then let's talk about the workshop. So I would like to talk about hooks. Let me present you a problem. So I got an app. So that app we got nothing on it, but let's create a stateful component. I'm doing that very quickly because you know that already, or you are supposed to know that already. So I'm going to create a stateful component with React with a button. So when I click on the button, I'm going to show a message how many times I press the button. Then if we would have time, which is not going to be the case, we can play a game to see, I don't know, how long it takes you to click 10 times on a button and see who has the fastest finger at coding, yeah? Something like that. All right, but for now, let's keep it simple. Why are you loathing, Florian? Cool. All right, so class, but let me just think about a valid name here. I don't know. So again, fastest finger. All right, so let's create the fastest finger component. So extends react.component. So if you remember, first of all, constructor, yeah, with super, and now state. So for now, let's check how many times you click on the button, yeah, because based on that, eventually in the future, we will be able to determine blah, 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 blah. How long it takes you to click 10 times, yeah, as an example. So, or clicks count. So what's the default value of clicks count? 0, I like that. So now we got a render function. So as part of render, return, we need a couple of things, yeah? So we need first of all the button, and then we need like a message to display clicks count. How, guys, we display the clicks count? Like that? Curly braces, yeah? Cool. All right, so now, you know, the only missing thing is to add a click handler on the button to increase the counter from 0, 1, 2, 3, whatever, yeah? So button on click, if you remember the syntax, this dot increase clicks count, something like that. So now I create a method, this dot what? Set state, correct, set state, and now I can do something like clicks count is this dot state dot clicks count plus 1, for instance. Yeah? Whatever the number of clicks count was, add 1. Yeah? Let's see if that works. Sorry, why is it not working? I'm not even invoking that method, yeah? So that component. So we definitely need to display it somewhere on the screen. So now, cool, fantastic, yeah? So that's exactly what I wanted to build. And that's a stateful component, so that's it. So now, I would like to rebuild that code using hooks. And you will quickly spot the differences and the advantages of hooks. So, that stateful component has several caveats or several concerns. Let's expose them. First of all, it goes against the JavaScript coding principles. In other words, JavaScript is a functional programming language. You create a function, am I sexy? Return true or false, and you call the function. However, this is not a function, that's a class. Yeah? To rephrase that, it goes against the historical JavaScript coding principle. Yeah? So, don't forget something, guys. JavaScript used to be a toy language. Starting from 2013, it's the most popular programming language in the world. Many backend developers, Java, C#, stuff like that, they realized that they were not that trendy anymore because they used to control the software development industry, but now that gravity center is moving towards JavaScript. So many of them decided to learn JavaScript, which is fine. But the first thing they notice is, hey, JavaScript, what the hell? I'm a class-oriented developer, but there are no classes in JavaScript. Yeah? So they made a lot of pressure to add support to classes. And that's why, starting from 2015, you can add classes. I'm not necessarily against classes, but still, they feel a bit, a bit weird. Eh? If you speak with senior JavaScript developers, many of them get very angry when talking about classes. They don't like them. Yeah? But anyway, we could be talking hours about classes versus functions, blah, blah, blah. Thing is, historically speaking, they feel weird. They feel weird. There's another problem. So, dependency on lexical this. One of the last workshops of this cohort will be about lexical this. But before talking about why this is a problem, you have noticed that we have to type this dot many times. And that's highly controversial. Because, for instance, do you remember, guys, what happened if I do this? Will this work? Why not, Yun? Why not? Let's have a look. Boom. Yeah? That doesn't work because that doesn't work. I'm not going to explain that now. But the thing is, it is complicated to keep the appetite of JavaScript and React happy. Yeah? Doing subtle changes may break your app. Yeah? So this is a good example. When dealing with onClick, you cannot do that. You cannot do that. You need to call a function and then invoke it again, which is a bit weird. Yeah? So to me, that feels weird. But that's the way it works. So if you do that, then you fix your algorithm. Yeah? So, in other words, we don't really want, ideally speaking, to depend on lexical this because we may easily break our application. And then, all the boilerplate code you have to write, constructor, render. You just need to take some assumptions. Yeah? You just need to follow React way of life, which is not a horrible thing, but this is not ideal, under my point of view. Yeah? So based on all these problems, the React community has been trying to find a different version of solving the things. So for instance, Functions, guys. You know you can create a function like fastest finger function, yeah, to differentiate it. So that will be fastest finger class, and that will be fastest finger function. So I mean, say it again. Finger, yeah. So you know you can create a function. Hello, Andrea, yeah, and then of course you can display that. So you got the class, and then you got the function. That's fine, yeah. So for basic stuff, you can display things. But the problem with functions is that by definition, by nature, they are stateless. In other words, historically speaking, until the last year, it was impossible to rewrite this piece of code writing a stateless component. We can try that. I mean, yeah, I did copy and paste the return statement. So now, I mean, what do you want to do? You want to create a variable, clicks count equals 0, and then I want to create a function, increase clicks count, and then as part of this function, I increase it, and then, can I do that? I'll tell you something. In theory, that looks good to me. In theory, that looks good to me. Eh? That's the equivalent code. I create a private variable. I create a method. And then whenever I click on the button, I call that method, and I increase the counter. But let's see what happens. If we run this code, that's stateful. Actually, let me add a message to avoid confusion. So let me rewrite my components a bit. So first of all, class version, and then I will have the function version. Stateless, and then the class is the stateful. Full or full? It's 1L or 2? 2? 1, I think it's 1, right? Any native British speaker here? Stateful, stateful. Full is 1L. Correct. So, you got two versions, yeah? Stateful, fantastic, works like a charm. But the stateless, 9. You know German? 9. Sounds very aggressive, 9. Eh? Cool, that doesn't work. The reason why this doesn't work is when dealing with a stateful component, we call set state. Set state force a re-render. In other words, we're explicitly telling React, now, please re-render my component, update the UI with a new number, 1, 2, 3, 4. However, if we do that, React will never ever re-render. Can we add breakpoints? Do you think, guys, that on version 80 Google has fixed all the problems with breakpoints? Can you imagine? No, I don't imagine that. But anyway, you know, let's who knows, right? I mean, let's try. So let me find the best way of presenting that piece of code. So if I open app.js, so on the stateful version, what is the stateful? Here. So every time I click on the button, it will first of all stop here, and then because of set state, it will re-render. Yeah. It doesn't even work on the first attempt, yeah? So, okay, but anyway, I'm your debugger today. So Google Chrome will stop here, and then it will stop here. However, when using a function, yes, it will definitely stop here. So that will happen. Even though you cannot see that, that function will be invoked. However, there are no side effects. Yes, we will increase that variable, whatever, but React won't re-render. That won't happen. That's the historical issue with a stateless component. We cannot force React to display the user interface creating a function until the last year. Because the React community made a lot of pressure, because it could be fantastic, maybe add a bit of changes to be able to solve the problem. I mean, so far I hope you agree with me that piece of code is way more readable, easier to understand, to maintain, blah, 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 than that one. Yeah? Constructor, what the hell is that? Yeah? So you don't got these things here. So a hook is a mechanism introduced by React to force, well, that's a bit hardcore, to first of all capture a given situation and then to redisplay. Yeah? So a hook can work in both ways. So when something happens, I want to hook that event. Yeah? Hook, I want to capture that event. And also because of hooks, we can force a re-render somehow. So, yeah?
So you're saying that this will not work only in React, or if we just do it as plain JavaScript by calling a function and trying to increment the counter when clicking the button, even then will it not work, the code, the functional component code which you have written, will it not work if I write it as a standalone JavaScript?
Well, yeah, but I mean, the code from a JavaScript point of view is perfect.
Okay.
The code updates the counter, updates the variable. So that code from a JavaScript perspective is perfect. The problem is here, this is has nothing to do with JavaScript, that's React. React is the responsible of displaying stuff on the screen. And React doesn't like this way of coding, or didn't like this way of coding in the past. So, first of all, how we introduce a hook? You know, when you create a new component, a new file, you always import React, blah, blah, blah. So now we need to import something else, comma. And now inside of brackets, you have to type use state. Yeah, that's the convention. You just need to stick to that pattern. Use a state. So now we need to refactor this bit. The render function is probably perfect already, but we need to refactor the way, first of all, we declare a variable, and then we need to refactor the way we update that variable. As we already introduced on Monday on the coding challenge review, you remember, that use state hook, when you call it, it returns two things. It's an array, essentially. It's an array with two variables. The first one is whatever you want to display. Yeah, you can put whatever name you want. That's the first element of the array. Yeah, it doesn't matter. The second element of the array is a function to update that variable. And that's all we need. We need a variable, clicks count, and we need a method, the equivalent version to set state. Do you remember? Thanks to set state, we updated the user interface. So that's your set state equivalent when working with hooks, when working with stateless components. So let's present that in regards to this example. Let array destructuring, do you remember? With array destructuring, my variable name will be clicks count. The second variable will be whatever I want to update that variable. Let me call it, correct, set clicks count. Why? Just for readability purposes. First of all, the variable, and then a name of a method to update it. I can call it floating, but that will be a bit weird. It will tell me nothing about what is that method going to do. Equals use state. Does anybody remember what can we pass here in the parentheses? That's correct, Alex. Here, we can specify the initial value of clicks count. In this particular scenario, what's the initial value of clicks count? 0, that's correct, guys. So now, that line is completely pointless. We remove it. So far, we have initialized our clicks count variable. So now, can anybody tell me how can I refactor that line? That's correct. Now, because we want to update the number of clicks. We call that method set clicks count. And what do we pass here? Clicks count plus 1, that's correct. And that's it. That's it. It's pretty much the same thing, but the difference now is, thanks to that method, React will understand, oh, he or she wants to update the UI. So React will force a re-render. So that code will be still okay because that method is still there. That variable is private, is here, so that should still work. Oh, look, now suddenly the breakpoints are working. Thank you for nothing. Oh, here you go. Oh, okay, cool. Let me refresh the page. Yeah, it works. So, look. You see? So now, both code snippets are equivalent, the class and the function. I will send them on Slack, so then you can compare them. And actually, I think that's a very valuable exercise. First of all, repeat the algorithm using a stateful. Make sure you understand how it used to work. And then try to rebuild it without looking at this code using a hook. Yep. Yep.
What is this function clicks can?
Yep.
Could you just get rid of that and then put that in the return statement instead?
That one?
Yeah.
So you want to put that here.
Lots and one click. Just lots and one click. And then
Like that?
clicks can is gone. Yeah.
What do you think, guys? Can we do that? Of course we can. That's a good point, Rosal. You see, even simpler, right? Whenever I click on the button, then I update the state. We don't even need to create any other function. And look, it's working. So,
Being as it was before, was pretty much separation of concerns more or less, right?
yeah, exactly. Even though both principles are correct, personally, I prefer the other one. And the reason is, to me, that improves the readability. Because when I click on the button, I call a method, and then I can add, imagine that I got more complexity here. Because I'm encapsulating that operation in a method, I have more freedom, more flexibility. Also, one more thing. Do you remember, guys, I told you before, we cannot do that? We cannot bind the method like that? Can we do that now? The only restriction about using this syntax was about lexical dis. Lexical dis causes a lot of problems. Do we see any reference to lexical dis in this piece of code? No. So that means that now we can bind the method like that. So that still works. So you got both flavors. You can bind an on-click method just by declaring it here, or you can bind the method by calling a function and then invoking your method. Yeah? Both versions are valid in JavaScript. Up to you.
What if you want to pass an object instead of just a number in the clicks count?
All right, so that's a good question. So what Anita is suggesting is, instead of dealing with a single number, we may want to deal with something more complex, like an object. Yeah? Technically speaking, first of all, imagine that you got two properties. You can create another variable, time, for instance, and set time. So talking about how fast your finger is, we could set a time to now, for instance. Oops, oh, what the hell is I doing? New date, dot get time. And then we could check something like if click count equal 5, then set time or no, I don't know. Anyway, I'm not going to go that far because I will make the example a bit more complicated. But anyway, you can definitely handle multiple properties. You may want to update multiple properties on your component. Or you can, rather than having multiple properties, you can have an object. Yeah? So for instance, instead of clicks count, I can call it, let's call it clicks count, but instead of a number, I got an object. So now we need to change a couple of things, because that's an object. I cannot update the state like that, because that will set a new number. So I need to pass an object, so it's consistency. That's the default. So now, the new state, count. Can you tell me how to complete this line? What else? Dot count plus 1. Yeah? So now, clicks count is an object. Our state is an object. So we need to update the state as an object. So, do we need to change anything else anywhere else? Which line?
18.
Correct. Clicks count is now an object. So if we really want to display the number associated with that object, we do dot count. And if we try again, yeah, you see, still working. Can we have an array here? The same thing. You can do whatever you want. Yeah. List of fruits. When you click on the button, you can add a new fruit. Whatever.
Are there circumstances where you would prefer to use a class-based function over using hooks?
That's a good question. So here we've done an intro to hooks. However, we didn't cover advanced use cases scenarios. For instance, do you remember, guys, how to call the backend from the front end? Do you remember where we did that? Where did we use fetch in a stateful component? That's correct. If you remember, we created component did mount. And here we did the fetch to the backend. Yep. But the question is, how can we do that in a stateless component? It's not that simple. Yeah? That goes beyond the scope of this session. So to me, if you're building something simple, like updating a property, displaying a list of things, stateless components or hooks work like a charm. Fantastic. Simplifies your code a lot. To the point that if you check React expert training on the Codery platform, so many of the questions, especially the ones about creating forms, inputs, and things like that, at the time we created them, we didn't have hooks yet. And that's why they are on the expert category, because writing them using a class was challenging. However, if now you face these problems and you use hooks, to me, these questions are not expert anymore, are probably intermediate. So definitely hooks simplify the process. Yeah? Other question is, even if, what happens if you got a very complex component with many things updating, sometimes hooks can be challenging, depending on your use case scenario. Yeah? I don't want to go that deep today. However, the long story short, if I go to the Codery platform, and I show you, I'm not sure if that's public, if you can see that, but if you go to challenges and you filter, and you remove the date filter, and you search summer, in the past. So, I'm clicking randomly, so past, filter. So last summer, that's it. React London Summer Social. So we ran a lovely event with people from Red Badger. Have you heard about Red Badger? It's one of the best meetup groups in London about React. And the majority of their audience are senior developers, so they don't have any juniors. Everybody here is rich, essentially. Yeah? So the thing is, if you check the code they wrote, that was last summer, yeah? But if you check the code they wrote, you may notice, ignoring all these oddities, you will notice that the majority of them use hooks. You see? That's literally what we've been talking about today. They use hooks to solve all the problems. Some people are still using classes, but the majority of the guys are using hooks. And that proves something, yeah? These are the influencers of React. Yeah? If you join a company, they will decide the coding style. So if these guys want to use hooks, that means they've been fighting a lot with hooks. And they have proved that definitely hooks pay off. Anything else?
Is there an easy way, like one line, to add another function to update the same variable, like a decrease counter?
Okay, so you want to add a new variable, you want to add,
The same variable, clicks count, but adding another function for decreasing
okay,
clicks count.
so you need a new button,
Yeah.
one button to add
Just a function. Add another function.
another function. Okay, so you want to add another function called decrease, yeah? And then what?
And then do something with click counters.
So then we remove one click, yeah? And now what? You want to do that? Well, that's what I'm saying, right? You essentially asking to have another button, one to increase, another one to decrease, increase, decrease. So yeah, that's fine. If we go back to our code, increase, decrease. Yeah. If I were you personally, I will change that. If I had to write that code, because look, we got two functions doing pretty much the same thing. Yeah. I don't like to repeat myself. This is considered anti-pattern. If you got two functions doing the same thing, probably it's time to merge them. So what I will do is I will simplify that to update clicks count. So, sorry. So regardless of whether I click, what did, hello? Where I am. So instead of having two functions, I will have just one, update for both buttons. But obviously that's not correct, yeah? Because if I run the code, the increase will be okay, but the decrease will keep increasing it. So we need to pass an argument. So look at how cool this is. Here I'm going to pass the delta. So when I update, I want to add one. When I update from decreasing, I will remove one. So now I can pass a variable here. Yeah. So when I click on increase, it will add one. When I call decrease, it will add -1. Yeah? In other words, it will remove one number, increase and decrease. And that code to me looks much better because I don't have to repeat the function. It's just a single function. Anything else? No? Cool. So my advice is, starting from today, personally, I will use hooks rather than classes as much as possible. Yeah, because definitely simplifies a lot the process of creating apps. However, I think it's important to note that if you join a job interview, they are likely to ask you how to create a component using a class, because historically speaking, that's the way React has been working. Even if they appreciate the advantages of using hooks, don't forget something. Unless you work on a greenfield project, unless you start working on an app from scratch, they may have a React application running for 5 years. That means that all the legacy code, has been written using using classes. So you will have to maintain that code. Maybe at Codery, all the new development at Codery is written with hooks. But if I check what I did in 2017, this is using classes. So you definitely need the ability to understand both worlds without ignoring that long-term wise, the approach should move from classes to hooks. That's it, guys.